Chief, if you're ready, they're all yours.
Great day. All right, so I'm Chief Robinson. I'm here competence and special warfare group 2 down in Little Creek. So we're going to go over medical records this morning, briefly. A little bit about me. I've been about 20 years, married with like 30 kids all over the world. No, I'm playing.
He's got that Nick Cannon life going on.
But you'll see a lot of slides, a lot of words, a lot of information. So to the best of my ability, I try to hit the high points and not waste too much of your time. You guys have the slides already, correct? All right, without further ado, we'll jump into it.
Do you want that quicker?
Yes, please. Thank you, sir.
Then try not to go too far away because we're also live streaming and the microphone's over there.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha, Chief.
So those in the virtual world, can you hear me?
They just got kicked out. I'm joining them all in right now. Teams cuts out after an hour.
Okay. You want me to wait then?
Yeah, it's 1 or 2 minutes real quick. And then pull this back up. All right, let's roll it, Chief.
So contents, some of the things we'll go over. So general information, basic info, types of medical records, med-recs for operational medical departments, specialty records, medical legal issues, instructions, definitions, etc. So general information is.
Here's what I found.
Siri is so nosy. So general information will be mostly about roles and responsibilities of a lot of characters. So patient admin division of NAVMED, Med 335, develop policies and program guidance on management, construction, maintenance, transfer, automation, retirement, and disposal records, procedures for NAVMED medical records. So I'm not going to read all these slides verbatim. We're all adults here. So if I'm going too fast or I can just slow down, just let me know. If you have questions, by all means, shoot your hand up in the air and chime in accordingly. Alright, so commanders, COs, OICs. These are their roles and responsibilities, so they're responsible for implementing and complying with this chapter. Ensure med records are prepared and maintained. Ensure accurate, complete, and timely record is completed for every patient. I feel like that's a typo. Designated in writing a medical records administrator or an accredited records tech at fixed MTF subject to joint commissions. We dare not say JACO. In absence of a medical records administrator. So department head, patient admin, responsible for administrative management of the medical records. Obviously that's their baby, their nest egg. There are a lot of other different little subsets within the patient admin department, but this is one of their key roles here in medical records. All right, so usually a medical records administrator serves as commands medical records branch program administrator for health records, outpatient records, inpatient records, delegated as med records custodian, and acts in case of OIC, CO, etc. Manage medical records personnel, develop and conduct medical records quality assurance programs, organize and conduct training programs. Providers ensure that they put accurate data into the records. So is everyone here recording? Alright, so most times you guys know, even with MHS Genesis, you're not seeing the patient initially, putting that initial subjective info before they go and see the providers. So their responsibility is just make sure that information is correct and accurate and properly return medical records to medical records branch. Alright, so general info. So it's essentially saying that each medical department is to develop policies and procedures for the patient's medical records. So take necessary precautions to avoid compromise, restrict access to medical records, keep all med records in a locked area, room, and when medical record is removed from a secure area, such as a clinic, inpatient area, or provided office, it receives the same level of security as in the MRB. Ownership of custody records. So it's government owns your medical record. So it's a lot of your personal information. That's why it's recommended when you're transitioning out for you to make copies. Because at the end of the day, that record belongs to the government, and you return it accordingly. You get charged or separate from the service.
Plus, it helps with a VA claim. You don't want to be that guy that has no documentation and have to do extra work, which already is a lengthy process on doing your VA claims.
Big facts. Also of note, don't wait till your final physical to document stuff in your medical record. Show history. If you've got ailments, by all means, go see. We as medical personnel are worse about going and getting seen and evaluated because we think we know it all, we can treat ourselves, fix it. Go see that medical professional or that subject matter expert to get taken care of and make sure it gets documented accurately in your record. Basic info for initial enlistment. So health records and dental records. Folders are prepared upon initial entry. We've all gone through that process. Prior service individuals who have been discharged and are coming back submit a request to St. Louis, the headquarters down there where they hold the medical records, using a DD-877.
Know that form. It's going to come up multiple times in your test. That's literally not just for these members, but in general, it's a request for records. So usually your next command will have to fill out that form to get your record from your previous command, since you can't hand carry them anymore, or shouldn't be hand carrying them anymore. We know we still do, but we shouldn't.
I thought you could with the page 13.
I mean, that might be per certain commands, but some commands will literally go by the rules, and they will keep your record until your next command requests it with the 877.
Question. So in this slide it says it's St. Louis, Missouri, but our previous one was New Orleans.
No, it was still
So
St.
there's
Louis.
two different entities, and we'll cover that too. It's
Okay.
noted in here.
So before, if somebody was in the service before 1994, it was New Orleans. The only other time New Orleans is mentioned is for reservists.
That is correct. Alright. Any questions? Any more questions on this slide? Alright, so verifications and inspections. So health records are subject to inspection at any time, so we want to make sure they're pristine, all the documents are in the respective areas of the medical record, and it's correctly filled out. The front portion, you got patient demographic info, inside the sleeve, you've got that section 1, you've got, their contact information all in the back of the last page. So and so forth, along with a few other forms and documents. Section 2 is typically we'll cover that. Should be verified by medical department representatives. It should be done annually, typically in accordance with the PHA. And upon reporting to each due station upon transfer in that time of physical exams. So documentation or verification should be documented via SF600. So I'm sure at some point in your careers thus far you've seen some type of form you've done a med record verification, right? Is anyone here ever done a med record verification?
So just for your knowledge, so you're not having to do so much at the end of the year, if you're doing a record verification every time you have a patient encounter, it'll make it easier so you have a lot less records to do a record verification on that, because it only takes a few minutes to do the record verification itself and could just be in that appointment when you're already seeing that patient.
I have a question. So is that documented different than on the pink slip that we document it on as well, or the red slip?
That pink slip is just for like if you're going to take your record somewhere else. The one he's talking about is you're checking if the accuracy of the record, and then you're either having your own form, but it should be documented on your SF600 that a record verification was complete.
Okay.
So most places will complete or put together a type of template to follow. And it pretty much goes step by step. You're verifying all portions of the record. You're looking at their immunizations, you're looking at immunizations, audiograms, blood
PHAs.
draws, PHAs, so on and so forth, making sure that information is accurate enough to. So types, you have your primary health record, which all your initial data will go into, follows you throughout the duration of your stint. Categories of primary health records, so You have a file that's continuous care given to active duty service members. So outpatient care, inpatient narrative, summaries, and operative reports are placed in your health record and is placed in the custody of the SMO. So SMO is single medical officer, and that's, you'll see them as your operational commands. So when an MDR is not assigned, the CO can assign custody of health records to local MTFs or fixed naval branch or health clinics. So outpatient record, obviously things when you're going out and getting seen, you're not, everyone knows the difference between inpatient and outpatient. Do I need to go in depth on that? No? Alright, sweet. General records are part of your health records and outpatient records. Secondary records, maintain files and secured at that respective specialty clinic, or Department of Fixed Med Treatment Facilities. Healthcare providers who create secondary records should note diagnosis, clinic, or department address and phone number on NAVMED 6150/20.
So don't mix up secure secondary records with your temporary records. So secondary are ones that are like still left at that clinic for any treatment you get. Your temporary ones are ones that if it needs to be brought back to be like input into your primary record, that's what you're transporting back and forth, if that makes sense. So don't mix up the two.
So typically, a temporary record is something you would take with you in event you do an individual augment or get deployed. So when you're out there, if they write me a 600 or anything like that, consolidate it into that temporary record, and when you bring it back, it gets assimilated into your primary record. So secondary records, convenience records, contain copy of excerpts from a patient's primary record, maintained within MTF by treating clinic, service department, or individual physician, and with treatment is completed, additional info not in the primary record is added and the file is purged. Does that make sense? Tip records, an original medical record established and retained in a specialty clinic, service department, OB-GYN for prenatal, in addition to patient's primary medical record. Ancillary records, original docs withheld from patient's primary health record. Patient's guardians or patient's parents or guardians have limited access to info in record due to psych, physical abuse, mental abuse, or suspected abuse of child or spouse. So temporary and ancillary records are not opened or maintained for active duty personnel. Exempt, OB-GYN, family advocacy, psychology, clinical records. So other records, replacement records. I'm sure at some point in your career someone's come across a replacement because their record got lost. Health record custodian will open a duplicate record for those that are deteriorating and can no longer be used or become eligible with a duplicate entered on the jacket above outpatient and bottom. So when you see records and you're doing your verifications, they will call manual raggedy because people have been in for ages, just replacing that record. When hospitalized in a foreign nation, health record will remain on board ship. If vessels departs while patient hospitalized, health record will be sent to nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. All incidents mentioned above must be documented on the FF600. Each MTF or medical department develops policies to ensure medical records are secure. TDFS is used to file health records, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Everyone knows the filing system from 0 to 9 when it comes to medical records. The primary numbers are the last two, secondary or the two prior to that. So let's say if your social is 1582, 82 will be the primary, 15 will be secondary. We'll cover that here shortly. Color coding and use of block filing system is also used. So 9 digits of social security number are provided into 3 groups, read from right to left. So primary 8-9, as I said previously, secondary would be 6-7, first part, tertiary 4-5, second part, tertiary, or quaternary, is that the word? 1, 2, 3, and then your respective family member prefix code. Alright, so health records, the colors based on the numbers. So 0 is orange, 1 is green, 2 is yellow, 3 is gray, 4 tan, so on and so forth. And then your respective family member prefix codes. So everyone understands what 3-0 in the case of spouse or 0-9 when it comes to your children. 0-1 will be your first child. 1-9 will be your 19th child if you had that many.
So this chart's wrong, by the way. It's missing some numbers from the one that we just saw in chapter 4. So 45 through 49 is your father, stepfather, and then 50 through 54 is mother-in-law. 55 to 59 is father-in-law. So it's missing the father and stepfather one on there.
Good on this slide. Alright, so closing health records, reasons why someone's died, discharged. Resigns, if I'm not mistaken, is in the case of officers, because it's not considered an enlistment for them. I'll take the word enlisted. Release from active duty, transfers into reserve, MIA, declared a deserter. With any of these instances is documented on episode 600, so at some point everyone will do a separation physical as you depart, and that will be annotated accordingly on that documentation. So desertion, since that person went UA no longer than 30 days, delivered their health record and their dental records to the member CO for inclusion transmittable with the member's service record when they turn in their documentation. And what is the form used to submit for a member's medical records? 877. So that's for PERS requests that will filter through your administrative department, typically YN or PS. That's in there. Let's see. Record retirement, block information. So retirement year tape, fix the appropriate record tape color to the block indicating anticipated retirement for the medical record, and shows latest year of retirement. Record retirement block shows latest year of treatment and is used to determine the retirement date for individual records. So that's not talking about a member retiring from service, that's talking about retiring that member's medical record. Tape and color, retired, so these are, outdated records. Do either of you, know up top, like the neural ones, since we're way past that timeline?
So I mean, I'll be honest with you, they're not really. They used to be on the test way back in the day. They're not. It's just it literally just restarts the cycle. So 2011 would have been yellow, 12 white, 13 green, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we're back on yellow. 2023 is yellow if you're going on the cycle. The half-inch part is what part you need to pay attention to. I don't know why they like to go that in depth, but it's a half-inch wide tape that you're putting on the record for the retirement block.
Right here. So you use half-inch wide, color, purchase-sensitive strip of tape.
And that 2 years that you were mentioning about closing out a record or whatever else and how long they hold it, that was the stuff I was talking about right here. The record should be retired 2 years after the calendar year date of last treatment. So that's when the record is retired.
All right, so this goes back to the question you asked previously. Pokorny? Is that how you say it? So, retired records after January 1994 were mailed to the Department of Veteran Affairs, Medical Records Center, St. Louis, Naval Reserve Personnel Center, members of Standby Reserve, Ready Reserve, Inactive Reserve, Volunteering Unit Transfer, Inactive Ready Reserve. So that's where those respective records will be archived. Does that make sense? Alright, so members released from active duty after serving for 29 consecutive days, discharged from naval service, so on and so forth. Alright, the next few slides are a lot of forms. I'm sure you've been inundated with forms throughout this entire process. Some of the most common forms that I've notice and seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, are for SF88, SF93, SF08, 509, well, excuse me, 508 through 1652. So 1648 to 1652 are some of the most common ones that I've seen.
So the big thing is not messing up your SF88 and your 93 with your 2807 and your 2808. So your 88 and 93 is mostly like when you're with your boot camp stuff or whatever else with physical exams, and then the normal report of medical, because they say the same thing, medical history and medical examination. So your 2807 and your SF88 are the same form, it's just depending on when you're using that exact form. Same thing with your medical history with your 93 and your 2808. Does that make sense to y'all? So just relate 28 or 88 and 93 with like like boot camp or forms of you getting into the Navy, right? Your normal forms every year for, like, say you're doing a screening for overseas, whatever else, is going to be your 2807 and your 2808. Know the difference between, I think I brought it up the other day or yesterday, SF601, because that's the one they'll confuse you with SF600. SF601 is your adult immunization record. I think there was another form you went over that was also an immunization record form. But here's your PHS 731, that's your yellow shot card. And then your M's are also on your, is it 2796? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Your 2796, and that's what I call your snapshot PrevMed form. That's the one that lists all your HIV testing, M's, allergies, anything. Like, say I want to send you to Africa, I want to look at that page right there to make sure you're all fully ready to go.
What are the ones on this page that you said to remember? The first two and then what else?
So the ones that confuse people is your SF88 and SF93 are the same as your 2807 and 2808. It's just based on when you use them. So 88 and 93 is like coming into the Navy, like your boot camp type forms.
I wouldn't go too far in the weeds because these last 4 or 5 slides are nothing but forms. That's an estimate amount of information. You probably get asked maybe 4 or 5 questions on this estimate.
And again, I'll give you guys the story I have later to kind of remember the order of the forms at the same time.
Any more questions? Well, move to the next slide. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Alright, so this is going over now one of the different sections of the medical record and what documentation goes where.
So there's something that I want you guys to pay attention to. If you have an instruction later on your bibs that's mentioned about a certain subject, i.e. the TB instruction, then I would pay attention to TB type forms that are listed in other instructions. So you have your 6224/1 and then you have your 2 and 3. Know those out of this instruction also because you know it's already re-highlighted in another instruction on your bibs, right? What they like to do on there is they will ask you something from another chapter relating to that subject when it's already referenced there to kind of throw you off. Just make sure you're paying attention to those specific forms.
Gucci.
$771 is one they name off to for your eyewear. How many required pairs of spectacles are you supposed to have?
2.
2. And what can one of those pairs be?
An procedure.
Yep.
Alright, so part 1, part 2, in your, or the right side when you open up your medical record, to be all your SF600s and your documentation or record of chronological care that you received. Section 3 is when you open to the third side, so you see all your physical exams, so on and so forth. So let's say, hey, you want to get crazy, become a forklift operator or anything like that. That exam that's done there, with that, we'll go in section 3. Question. Alright, Alright, so section 4, this is typically where your labs, rads, things along those lines, they will go and they'll be in that section. So if someone gets their labs printed out, section 4 is where they go, or any type of radiologic data they may have. So if they're going out of town, they got an MRI, they print out the results of that MRI, and that will go into section 4, obviously. With everything converting to the electronic health record, then you get scanned into MHS Genesis. Alright, so a list of more forms. And forms on forms on forms on forms. Alright, so top forms, when a patient is deceased, 6300/5, record of inpatient treatments, patient statements, and so forth, death certificate.
The ones that will confuse you, just know your different SF523s, because they will put all of those as answer choices. So it goes kind of in order on how you're going to get that procedure, right? So you have your authorization for an autopsy is going to be your 523 to start out saying, hey, can we perform this autopsy? Your 23 alpha is saying, hey, now that we can perform this autopsy, what are we going to do with the body? Okay? And after that, once we figure out what we're going to do with the body, we're going to figure out where we want to send those tissues off to, right, for tissue donation. So can we do the autopsy? Where are we going to put the body? What are we going to do with the tissue that's involved with the body? So knowing that order can help you not mix up 23, 23 alpha, and 23 bravo.
More forms.
2 and 4 are the ones that I want y'all to know, because those ones they'll be the ones that mix you up on the test. So they both say the word abstract, right? So I'm not going to pay attention to the word abstract. I'm going to pay attention to the word special duty to know it's talking about the 2, and then service and medical history for the 4. All right? You get caught up on that abstract word, you're going to miss up those 2 on the test.
Both those forms can be found in section 3 of your health record. Alright, so with that being said, any questions?
Can you go back to that last slide?
And I want to apologize for what I spoke on wrong before. I know she noticed it. So the secondary and temporary record, it was let me go back to that slide. It was a category of a secondary record. So temporary record is not a separate thing, but it falls into a category of temporary records. I'm going to find that slide, wherever it is. Yeah.
So all of these can be like a different record?
Yeah, all these are 3 different types of secondary records based on what you need it for.
That was my question. Go back to this slide specifically, because I just wanted to go over, like, because I feel like our examples that we're given was confusing me a little bit of, like, what each one support, like, examples of what it would be.
Okay.
I, like, got mixed up a little bit. If we can go over that again.
Okay, easy day. So, to summarize, so convenience records, they're typically when you're at a ancillary clinic or you're getting treated by that provider, and they're like notes. I think a good example would be. No, I'm losing. I can't think of the name of it. MFLAX. So MFLAX, they keep notes based on, so you can see an MFLAX as a counselor, they keep notes on that.
So if you send them out for specialty care and they're getting any kind of treatment, right, and that stuff is not in your primary record, meaning they have their own system where they track everything, they're a civilian where that communication doesn't communicate with Genesis, right? that convenience record, whatever that MFLAC or whatever provider is seeing you for that care, you can then bring that back to put into your physical record, and then that file is then purged, getting rid of, right? So it's just any kind of treatment that's already not going to communicate with our primary Genesis system.
You see that a lot of like your smaller communities, your branch health clinics, who don't have a lot of organic capacity, so they pretty much outsource all their specialty care, whether it's cardiovascular, surgery, obstetrics, whatever the case is. At the hospital, maybe not so much because you have a lot of sources here, but even smaller clinics, like I said, pretty much everything is going to be outsourced. So you'll see a lot of those types of records.
Pay attention to the appendices, so they'll help you understand them too, right? So for temporary to make it make sense, right? Some of y'all don't want to go to the OBGYN that's at the actual military hospital, right? That's going to be a care for a long, extended period of time. So they would establish a temporary record at that facility for each of your appointments that you're having for the OBGYN, right? And they'll just maintain it there for your care throughout that process, right? Now ancillary, again, pay attention to the parentheses because this is what's going to be on the test for ancillary. Psychiatric, rape, or suspected abuse of child or spouse. They would literally use that verbiage on the test and say, what kind of record would you keep for this kind of situation? And those are going to be your ancillary records, right? So it's something that's kind of like a secret private record that only specific people have access to.
I think like the convenience records and temporary records sound similar to me. I don't know everybody else, because we're talking about specialty and like.
So think of a convenience record more like a, I don't know if you guys know the term, but like a shadow record. So if you're getting ready to deploy, right, and you may not necessarily have access to the healthcare systems, wherever environment you're going to, commands or units will take shadow records or convenience records with you, which are basically smaller physical patient records that just have the basics necessary for each of that patient, and then they'll take that with them, usually overseas or wherever it is that they're going. It doesn't have everything, but it'll have their immunizations, any major healthcare issues they have, maybe their last 2807 if it's relevant to their job. Pilots is a good example of that kind of case. So think of convenience records more like that. Temporary records you take with you on deployment.
Oh, so that's what you're taking with you elsewhere, but the temporary is what you're bringing back to your original, basically, right? That's what.
Well, again, no, temporary refers more to like he was talking about with the specialty care and outside clinics and whatnot. So they're not they look similar, I know, but they're in practicality they're used. That's not really how they're used.
Okay, yeah. Does that make sense to y'all? So like if somebody's deploying, whatever else, they create this is what they call like a shadow record, right? So we're just your most, so I was talking about how they don't make records anymore in boot camp? So they would create these convenience type records so they at least have something with the most important stuff we need to know about that individual. So their M's, anything on that MERS kind of page, we put that in that record and that carries them. So when they're on the ship and we don't have access to Genesis or everything else, any other treatment that's gathered while they're on the ship gets put in that record, then brought back and put back in their primary record at the clinic or wherever it's kept at, and then they purge that convenience record. Temporary, again, is just for services you're getting out of town for like OBGYN or any other specialty care, to where it's just extra documentation because those systems don't communicate. I don't know if that makes sense. Does it still not make sense?
No,
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you all for your time. Have a great rest of your day.